Welcome back to video number 8 video number 9, I'm sorry, as we will be exploring the next term within the Kabbalistic understanding of the Sefirot, within the Kabbalistic understanding of the creation of the world, okay? This video we will be focusing on the topic of the shattering of the vessels, okay? We mentioned this previously, but let's talk about it in detail because it's really relevant, quite relevant to the idea of how Sefirot play a practical role in our life, okay? So the idea is here, remember that, here, let me open up the previous page where I wrote everything, right? The first stage we had the Sefirot who were completely bound to each other. It's like one big lump of 10 Sefirot. Sefirot are always 10, never more, never 11 or 12 or 9, okay? It's always 10. And we're going to discuss in details this stage before they go and form a structure that is very important for the practical integration into our life, okay? The shattering of the vessels occurred when in the second stage, the Sefirot, remember Sefirot are always depicted as circles. They represent the vessels that contain the reflection of the light of the divine infinity, okay? And they're always 10, 1, 2. And in the second stage, the Sefirot are completely disintegrated from each other. They kind of exist in the same space, but they're not bound to each other in any way whatsoever. In fact, going further, each one will think that they're more important than the other. Always count, okay, 4, 7, 8, 9, and of course there's 10, okay? Each one thinks that they're more important than the others, okay? And remember, each one has their own attribute, right? Like I said, I will explore the Sefirot, the whole structured tree of life, as it's called. The structured Sefirot is called the tree of life. We will explore, but at this point, just to make the concept, the idea of what happened in the second stage relevant, right? Let's name the Sefirot. So let's say this Sefirah is a Sefirah of kindness, which is Chesed. Okay, the Sefirah is a Sefirah of Gvura, right, which is judgment or structure, okay, judgment. Okay, the Sefirah is a Sefirah of harmony. It's also known as beauty, right? The Sefirah is a Sefirah of endurance. It's also known as victory. Okay, the Sefirah is a Sefirah of majesty, right? It's also known as honor, majesty. Okay, Sefirah is the Sefirah. I missed the top one. The Sefirah is the Sefirah of the crown, what's called the crown. Okay, Sefirah of wisdom, Sefirah of understanding, right? Bina. Okay, Sefirah of foundation. And the last one is kingship, which is Malchut, okay? Okay, so I kind of put the top ones on top. It doesn't matter, they're floating around, the truth is. And each one thinks that they're most important ones. That all the other ones are not as relevant or not as important, not as relevant, as necessary for the survival in this world, okay? Basically, each one thinks they're better, right? And as each one keep thinking, they keep like, in a way, they keep growing, but they can't grow because they're vessels, okay? They're made out of concrete. Even though we understand vessels as a metaphoric way, it's also, the more they think about themselves, the more light they keep getting from, I'm going to put it like this, right? From the, or Ein Sof, from the light of divine infinity, okay? Just give you an example, right? The more they get it, they keep getting it, they keep getting it. At one point, right, what happens? Look what happens. The more in neural lines I add, what happens? Look, it's not empty anymore. There are so many neural lines. It's full of neural line. There's no space. What happens when this happens in NeuroGraphic? Remember, we actually expand. But this is a vessel. They can't be expanded. They expand only to a certain point. Afterward, they can't expand because this is, remember, we're talking about ideally, it's supposed to be the physical world. The molecules cannot expand more than that, right? And we know since this represents the emotional world like works like that as well. It does not expand, the emotional world is bound to the physical world, okay? Our emotions are fully tied into the integration, to the triggering of our physical body. When something bothers us on our body level, that's when we get triggered and we explore, we kind of answer back emotionally, and then of course we start processing it, which happens mentally. So what happens here is that this occurs. It's interesting to note, okay, just to repeat, the Sefirot are vessels for divine light, and each one is an element of divinity. Okay, they all represent positive qualities here. Each one, it's nothing bad, it's nothing negative, However, it comes a point when each Sefirah does not see the other ones. Okay, and they begin to what? Absolutize themselves. They say, look, I'm the only best one. And even though this one also gets lots of divine light and gets, what happens? We're not going to harmonize the neural lines here. And look what happens, right? Lots of sharp endings, lots of disharmony, right? What happens? Lots of light. However, this Sirah says, I'm the only one that's important. Look how much light I'm getting. Nobody gets as much light as I do, even though this one just gets just as much, but it's oblivious to each other, right? And that's what it is. Each Sefirah tries to kind of prove the point that they're the best ones. But nobody is absolute, right? No Sefirah is absolute, and that's the idea. When the vessel tries to absorb more light than it has the capacity, the Sefirot explode. Hence comes the idea of the Big Bang theory, okay? They burst from internal pressure, from taking too much light than they can contain, okay? And what happens is that the vessel explodes. Imagine, think about the balloon. It expands to a certain point, but then it just explodes. And what happens? Shards of the balloon, right, fall down. And this cosmic catastrophe, when it explodes, right, when the vessel expands, but then it breaks down, right? And, right, there are dots everywhere. Each Sefirah, this happened to each one of the 10 Sefirah. Each Sefirah kept thinking and boasting, here's the word boast comes from this, right? Saying, I'm the best one. I can be what? Infinite. Overestimating their ability to contain the divine light. Not paying attention to the fact that they are a vessel with finity, with a finite ability to contain a certain amount. And then they all break down, okay? They all take too much light and break down, too much light and break down. They take too much light and break down. And the pieces, this breaking down is what creates the world of chaos. In Hebrew, it's called Olam Tohu, okay? Olam Tohu. So the word Tohu, if you ever read Torah, the Bible, the Old Testament is known as, but we're going to call it Torah because that's the real name of the Bible. Then it's there is a word Tohu in there, in the very first verse. It says when God created the world before was Tohu v'Vohu. The word Tohu means chaos. Chaos, and Vohu means like darkness. Okay? And it refers to this specific period, right before the creation of the world, right before all the Sefirot were organized and put in the structure. the world went into chaos because each Sefirah expanded, and then whoosh, blew up, right? Each Sefirah got too much light, more than they could endure. As a result, because remember, light comes from all, this is a circle, from all directions, more than they can endure, and as a result, what happened? Big bang. Okay, everything blew up and created the chaos, the world of chaos. Okay, this understanding the shaking, the breaking, the shattering of the vessels is known as, in Hebrew, it's called Shvirat Kelim. This is a very important Kabbalistic term, because the idea of a human life, we're going to talk about it now, is actually repairing this chaos, repairing this broken, finding the broken vessels. Let's talk about it. What is, again, the idea, the significance of breaking the vessels? We must learn, as humans, we must learn the metaphorical, the psychological, the logical explanation, as well as, of course, any other connection to it. But the idea is that when one value tries to absolutize themselves, when one value says, even if it's very good, all the values here are good, right? But when it says, oh, I'm the best one, I'm the most important, nobody is more as important as I am, that's when this happens. All the other values become neglected within that view, right? And the system breaks down. There is no synthesis, right? And the value of even that one that consider themselves the best, kind of, it breaks down, it disintegrates, it disappears. And all the other ones also. The idea here is that each one thought they were the best and completely disintegrated themselves without trying to, would you understand it in human terms? To form a relationship, to form a connection with everyone else. No value should ever be proclaimed to be the one and only main one, the best one, the only one. Right? Because then there is what? Then there is a absence of balance, and we need a balance of values. Each value is good on its own, and they both work best together when they work with each other. Even if they oppose each other, we're going to explore that in the next video as we discuss each structure of the Sefirot, because they're actually somewhat opposing, but together they work by forming, by contributing and building the next one. Okay, and this is another very important concept to learn. Chaos is not built by evil. Chaos is created by forces in good when they absolutize only one part of this good and forget about the other parts. Okay, this is very important to understand, okay? This world of chaos is the point world after the explosion and breaking of blood of light vessels. And it's important to start understanding that in a spiritual realm, this connects to the soul mission. Some people have a soul mission that's connected, rooted in here. Their soul mission is to find the broken vessels, we're going to talk about how we can do that, what happened to the broken vessels, okay? But it's important to understand that there are people, probably meet them, okay? Those of you who know what I'm talking about, they are mostly born with a fire element. These are rebellious people. They usually go against the structure. They go against the establishment, so to say. They're revolutionary people. They have a hard time finding themselves in the world. They have a hard time even like building lasting relationship or lasting friendships, because their soul is rooted here. Their mission is to find these broken vessels. The reason I'm saying is that because the broken vessels, what happened with the broken vessels, they didn't just fall down. You can't just go find it. The broken vessels have hidden themselves. The broken vessels have hidden themselves, And the idea is that the broken vessels turned into something we call the sparks of life. Okay, you probably heard again the phrase spark of life, spark of light. The sparks of light are the broken vessels, because each vessel, the vessel that broke down, each piece, the broken piece of the vessel, has a light, the divine infinity, the light of divine infinity attached to it. So in order for that light, because it's a holy, holy light, to kind of protect themselves, to kind of, like hide themselves from, to fight. It's like a way, it's like a human way of doing things, right? What happened is that that piece of vessel with the attached particle of light attached themselves to an entity called shells. Okay, the best example would be looking at a fruit like orange. Orange what? Has an outer shell that's not edible. We clean it, and then we extract the edible seed or edible fruit within. Something similar to that. Okay, it's interesting to note that when the vessels fall down, this is what created in the world, the top and the bottom. Okay, the vessels falling down created the bottom atmosphere. Okay, the top is different, right? Different atmosphere. Remember the idea here, that circle, right? That when the beam entered, it entered the center of the universe. But there were areas, it's interesting to note, over here, like if we look at it without the circles of the world that I added, there is empty space. So the shells, when they fell down, that's where I wrote down, they fell and down, and they kind of floated in the air, but they became concentrated on the bottom of the world. And that's why in the world, we have different types of atmosphere, right? Different type of air. Remember, air is a reflection, a very faint reflection of the light of divine infinity, like I explained in the first, and I think in the third or the fourth videos, right? And that's the idea. The idea is that the shells kind of protect this vessel with attached light into it, and they kind of protect. So a lot of times our job as human is to go and look, and the vessels are contained into entities, various entities. Most of the time, of course, we look at it as people, other people, right? Certain people, something we consider to be maybe negative. We have to keep in mind that people, after what happened, the breaking of the vessel, came the stage that we remember, the correction stage, the repair, right? Repair, right? Tikkun. There's a term called tikkun olam, the repairment of the world, right? And this is a job as a human being. We're coming to this world to help repair the world, to help balance the world, to help bring harmony into the world. How can we, right? This is the idea. How can I contribute to the world to make it a better place, right? And that's the difference between teenagers and adults. Adults already understand that there is a balance needs to be done. And it's interesting to know that each spark, right? There are sparks everywhere, right? Has a light to it, right? If we add a light. But then they will be what? They will be enveloped. They attract, right? When they fall into the air, right? They start attaching some air to it because what? It has this, because it has a spark, like we mentioned, the attached light has a spark. So attraction of air to the spark occurs because the spark is a fragment of meaning and direction toward the goal of the universe. Remember, it's part of the divine light. Divine light is connected to the ray of light. Ray of light is what gives direction and meaning to everything, right? And it's kind of pointing the general understanding of what ray of light represents. So each of the sparks represents giving direction, giving meaning to whatever it is you enveloped in, okay? So in order for that to happen, it creates this shell around, okay? Shell, I'm kind of making it circle, but it can be different shapes. It can even be triangle. It can be all kind of different shells, because remember, this is not a Sefirot. This is a broken down vessel. Okay? New Sefirot has been built, this is also an allegory even to the, the shattered commandments, right? That the first commandments were broken, and then the second one came in when Moses brought it. Lots of allegories here, okay, to the way life processes in life, to the stages we do things in life on a practical level, okay? So the air that sticks around, that connected and sticks around, creates this protection, okay? And the shell, it's called actually like parasites is the spark and preserve it. It closes the spark in and it preserves it. So outside, you can't see there is a spark. You just see some kind of closed entity. And that entity will do anything it can to protect itself because it doesn't know what's the meaning, right? It's like I said, similar to what the purpose of the shell in the oranges. It protects what's inside. The shell also feeds on the energy from within the spark and lives at it, but it also preserves the spark, okay? Repair. The idea of a human being repairing the world is collecting the shells, finding certain entities and finding those broken vessels with a light attached, with the sparks attached, and trying to find and see what's inside each of these entities. Is there a hidden light? Okay. That's why a lot of times we try new things, we try new ideas, and we try to form a relationship with various people, because inside those people, like I mentioned, even people who seem to be not very positive, not very good, may have, so there are, talking about the various souls. So there are people who come from the repair, there's a repair world. Some people come with a soul that's originated here. Their soul mission in life is to repair the world, to help preserve the world. But some people come, their mission in life is to find the hidden shells. And in that sense, they come from the world of chaos, the world of shattering of the vessel, because that's the only way they can what? They can attract this broken vessel. They can attract various entities, various people, various ideas, right? And that's a harder job, right? It's not easy to live in a job, in a world where you have a harder time forming connection, harder time forming coalitions. People are not as attracted to you as somebody who is more like, popular guy in high school and somebody who is not so popular, right? Most kids are, right? And that's the idea. The non-popular kids usually stick together, right? And they help each other get out of the shell, help each other see each other's sparks, containment, discover the spark within. But sometimes we have those popular people, right, who are very good, they're good in grades, they're good academically, they're good popular, socially wise, and they probably come from here. They're world leaders, okay? Most leaders come here, their jobs, most people whose soul originate here, their job is to be a leader, their job is to unite people, okay? To kind of form communities to help people get along in a communal sense. But people who come over here, they don't necessarily form communities, they don't build relation maybe in a communal sense, but they do more personal also. Okay, so there are different levels of understanding, and this is the reason why we must learn to get along, to form communities, to form relationship with others for this, right? For this specific reason. To understand that this is one of the like soul mission, to understand, to find the hidden sparks, to connect to it, to see, because sparks usually will kind of Sparks of the same entity will sometimes connect to each other. Sparks of this opposite, right? We mentioned chesed and gevura, kindness and strictness, they will attract to each other. Because somebody who is very kind may need, that usually happens with friends or like even in a relationship, right? Somebody who is very kind will attract somebody who is a little more strict, and that's necessary for balancing each other out. Okay. And that's the concept of the breaking of the vessel, and then the world of chaos, but then comes the world of repairment, the world of where we live now. This is our practical world. This is the reason why we have so much, when people say, why there's so much bad happening in the world, this is it. Because there are a lot of hidden sparks, and we need to find, but the sparks are hidden in a very hard shell. The shell sometimes acts as something bad happening. So we need to learn to go beyond. We'll go see beyond. Every person has a hidden spark. It's also metaphorical. Every person, even the worst person or somebody who's very bad, they have a hidden spark within them. We just need to learn to have patience, to discover it, and layer by layer, right? My children like to joke about like Shrek saying, it's like a layer of onions, right? Something like that, like onions, even as an exact example, right? It's so healthy, but it doesn't taste good, and your eyes get watery when you clean it or when you cut it. But it has so many health benefits, nutritional, so many. So that's what it is. That's another thing. People are like that. Entities are like that. Ideas are like that. Some ideas may not be so good. And it's important to start learning and connecting to different people, to hear different opinions, to release the sparks from within. Okay? It's an idea about what? Remember we talked about it? This is an idea of adulthood, right? Growing up, becoming mature. Becoming mature involves socializing even with people we don't necessarily want to, we don't feel we have much in common, right? That's where maybe something hidden. Okay. Thank you so much for joining me again. If you want to register for the Sefirot course, where we will explore each Sefirah, both from psychological understanding, but also through the NeuroGraphic drawing, welcome to join. My website is neurographicausa.com, and also lanashalom.com. Welcome to join. I would love to see you in the course.